it's important to understand the basic concept and premise of an IRA. The IRA means that laws allow you to set aside money, and while the money is held in the IRA accounts, the earnings are not taxable to you. But at some point, the government says then that money must be distributed, or I like to use the term disgorged, out of the IRA. And when it does come out of the IRA, except for Roth IRAs, then the money is taxable income to somebody. So it's a bargain between you and the government. And so what the Secure Act did is that it says, fine, you can have this money set aside for you and your spouse for retirement purposes, but when both of you are gone, we the government, don't want you to continue to use that as a long-term deferral of the income tax. So we want the money out more quickly. Anyway, you often as part of that proposal about taking the money out, and you would have heard of RMDs, required minimum distributions. One of the things the Secure Act did was to extend the period of time that an RMD must begin from 70 and a half to age 72. That's really not important here, but that's an important idea, again, how the government forces the money to be taken out so that it can be taxed. Okay. So even though the Roth IRAs are not taxable income, the government still forces you, once both you and your spouse have passed away, to still distribute that money so that it eventually can be taxed by somebody. It's not taxed by your beneficiaries, but it has to come out or be disgorged from the Roth IRA within the time limit set by law. And again, if you see disgorgement or disgorging, that's really my term. That's not a term you're going to find in the other literature, but I use that term to distinguish it from the term distribution, which you will see here. Okay, so I mentioned that anything, if you have a child with special needs, should be paid for them. And that usually means to be paid to a trustee of a special needs trust. So again, if you don't want to pay that IRA, whether it be a Roth or otherwise, directly to your child with disabilities, because then the child won't be broke, and thereby having the child be disqualified from various aid. So you want to have the money set aside for that child, so that it'll be available only for the child. Now, we use a special needs trust. Now, back up, you may ask, well, what is a trust, first of all? Okay, so trust is really, we call it a legal fiction. Not all fiction is bad. That is just a term sometimes that we use. A trust has a person who creates a trust, that's sometimes called a settlor, a grantor, a trustor. The trust has a beneficiary, and that's the person who can receive the income and principal from the trust. And it has a trustee, the person who's in charge of actually implementing the trust and making sure that the rules are followed. How is the trust created? The trust can be created just by signing some papers during your lifetime. It can be created as part of your will. It can be created in many ways, but in basic terms, it involves the person creating it, the beneficiary, and the trustee. So, a special characteristics of a special needs trust is that the trustee has the total discretion to decide whether or not to spend any of the money from the trust. That's in contrast to other types of trusts where the beneficiary can say, hey, pay me the income or pay me part of the principal because I am deserving of it and you must pay me. With the discretionary trust, the special needs trust, the trustee can say no. That's a lot of power, but precisely because the trustee can say no, then that money within the trust is not considered to be available to the beneficiary. So even though the trustee can't use it for anybody else. If you also hear some literature, you'll see perhaps terms of if an IRA is paid to a trust, whether or not it would be an accumulation trust or a conduit trust. And a conduit trust used to be a great way of dealing with IRA assets, because a conduit trust simply said anything that was paid into the trust that year would have to be paid out in that same year to or for the benefit of the beneficiary. An accumulation trust allows the trustee to receive money into the trust and income and maybe not pay it out. Again, the beneficiary cannot compel the trustee to spend money from an accumulation trust, an accumulation special needs trust in particular.